One of the most underestimated tools in relationships is silence. We tend to think that progress always comes from doing something. Sending a message, making a call, showing up. We think that more effort equals more results. But sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is step back. When you stop contacting a woman, you're not just disappearing, you're introducing space. And space, whether she admits it or not, is incredibly compelling. Because what fills that space is her mind. It's her thoughts. It's her curiosity. And curiosity is a far stronger motivator than any text you could have sent. Think about it this way: when you're constantly available, constantly reaching out, constantly filling her phone with your presence, there's no room for her to wonder about you. She doesn't have to think. She doesn't have to reflect. You've already given her all the answers before the questions even arise. But when you stop contacting her, suddenly the questions flood in. Where did he go? Did I do something wrong? Is he losing interest? What's changed? Those questions are powerful because they don't just spark curiosity, they spark emotion. And emotion is what creates attachment. Most people are terrified of silence. They rush to fill it because silence feels uncomfortable. But discomfort is what makes people act. When she notices your absence, that silence forces her to pay attention to what she's feeling. It makes her realize how much she noticed your presence in the first place. And that's something she can't experience if you never pull back. Now, here's the mistake many men make. They think silence is a game. They use it to manipulate. But I want you to understand something important. It's not about manipulation. It's about reclaiming balance. If you're always the one reaching out, always the one initiating, always the one carrying the connection, it creates an imbalance. And an imbalance is exhausting. When you step back, you're not punishing her. You're just allowing the natural rhythm of attraction to reset. You're giving her the chance to invest. And believe me, if she values you, she will. In that silence, something else happens too. She starts to replay her interactions with you. Every conversation, every date, every message. It all comes back into focus. She begins to analyze them in a way she didn't when you were constantly present. Why? Because when you're always around, she doesn't need to look back. She's too busy looking at what's right in front of her. But when you step back, her mind does the work for you. She remembers the way you made her laugh, the way you made her feel special, the way you challenged her. And it's those memories that create longing. And here's the beautiful irony of silence. You can often say more by saying nothing. When you stop contacting her, you're not just leaving a blank space. You're sending a very clear message. You're saying, I'm not going to chase endlessly. I know my value. If you want to connect with me, you have to meet me halfway. That message is not only attractive, it's magnetic. Because confidence, real confidence, doesn't shout, it whispers. And silence is one of the most confident whispers there is. Now, some of you may be thinking, but what if she doesn't reach out? What if she forgets me? And that's the fear that keeps people clinging. Well, but let me tell you something. If she forgets you that easily, she was never that invested to begin with. Your silence won't push away the right woman. It will only reveal the wrong one. That's why this isn't just about getting her attention. It's about clarity. Silence shows you who she really is when you're not putting in all the work. And don't underestimate the ripple effect it has on her perception of you. When you pull back, she realizes that you're not like everyone else. You're not desperate. You're not dependent. You're not operating out of fear. Instead, you're showing that you are a man with standards, a man who values his own time and energy. And that kind of man is rare. That kind of man is unforgettable. What you'll notice, if you allow yourself to embrace silence, is that she'll begin to fill the gap. Maybe not immediately, but gradually. She'll test the waters, liking a post, sending a casual message, dropping a hint. That's her way of breaking the silence. That's her way of saying, I noticed. I care. And when that happens, the dynamic changes. She's no longer passively receiving your attention. She's now working to earn it. But none of this happens if you're too afraid to stop contacting her in the first place. None of it happens if you rush back in at the first sign of discomfort. You have to give silence time to work. And that's the part most people miss. They expect instant results. But silence is not about speed, it's about depth. It works slowly, quietly, but when it takes hold, it's powerful. So the next time you find yourself tempted to reach out, remember this: every message you don't send, every call you don't make is not a loss. It's an investment. It's an investment in space, in curiosity, in attraction. It's an investment in clarity. And most importantly, it's an investment in yourself. Because silence, when used with intention, doesn't just change how she sees you. It changes how you see yourself. When you stop contacting a woman, the first thing that usually happens is not calm reflection. It's not her instantly realizing your value. The first thing that happens is an emotional reaction. And this is important to understand, because if you don't expect it, you might get pulled right back into the very dynamic you were trying to step away from. At first, she feels something shift. She's used to a rhythm with you. A message at a certain time, a certain level of consistency, a sense of reassurance that you're there. And when that suddenly disappears, her emotional system reacts the same way it would if she misplaced her keys or forgot her phone. That little spike of panic. Wet. Is something's missing? Where did it go? It's almost automatic. And that initial reaction often comes in the form of confusion. She might think, did he get busy? Did I do something wrong? Is he upset with me? And here's what's fascinating. Even if she hasn't been putting much effort into the connection, even if she's been taking you for granted, the absence of your presence still hits her, because we notice a void more than we notice consistency. We notice what's gone missing more than what's always been there. Now, confusion can quickly turn into frustration. And this is where you need to stay grounded, because frustration often looks like dismissive behavior. She might say to herself, oh, he's probably just playing games. Or, if he's not reaching out, I won't either. But underneath those words is a very different feeling. Underneath, there's the sting of realizing that attention she once counted on is no longer guaranteed. And no one likes to feel that. That sting can create an emotional ripple. She might scroll through her phone, looking at your old messages. She might check your social media to see what you're up to. She might even bring you up casually to a friend, just to test how it sounds out loud. All of this is her way of processing that shift. On the surface, it may look like indifference, but underneath, she's reacting. And that's the whole point. Your silence creates movement where before there was none. What makes this stage so critical is that it exposes a truth about human nature: we don't like uncertainty. When someone pulls away, we instinctively want to close the gap. And that's exactly why her emotional reaction, whether it's confusion, frustration, or even denial, is such a powerful moment. Because it shows she feels something. And feeling something, even if it's uncomfortable, is far better than feeling nothing at all. Now, let me warn you about a common trap here. When men sense that she's confused or frustrated, they rush back in to soothe it. They can't stand the thought of her being unsettled. They think, if I just explain myself, if I just reassure her, then everything will be okay. But the moment you do that, you undo all the progress that silence created. Because instead of allowing her to sit with those emotions and process them, you rescue her from them. And if you rescue her too quickly, she never feels the full weight of your absence. Her emotional reaction needs to run its course. Just like when you work out and your muscles ache the next day, that soreness is what tells you growth is happening. In the same way, her confusion, her frustration, that little sting she feels, that's the emotional soreness that tells you attraction and awareness are being rebuilt. It's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Here's the interesting part. Once she processes those initial emotions, she'll start to adapt. That's when she'll either lean in, by trying to reconnect, by reaching out, by showing signs of interest, or she'll lean out. But either way, her first reaction will almost always be emotional. And the way she responds in that emotional state gives you valuable insight into where she truly stands with you. If she starts making subtle moves to get your attention, that's her way of saying, I noticed. I care. If she doubles down on pride and pretends she doesn't care, that's still a reaction. It's just masked as indifference. And even in that mask, the emotion is there, because indifference is silent. Indifference doesn't need to put on a show. So if she's reacting at all, trust me, she feels it. And that's why this stage is so important for you. It's not about enjoying her discomfort. It's not about getting satisfaction from her frustration. It's about recognizing that her reaction is a sign you've shifted the dynamic. It's proof that your silence has weight. And once you understand that, you stop being afraid of it. You stop rushing to fix it. You start allowing it to do the work it's meant to do. So don't be surprised when the first thing she does is react emotionally. Don't panic when she seems upset or confused or even a little cold. That's not the end of the story. It's the beginning of it. Because that initial emotional reaction is the spark that wakes her up to your absence. And without that spark, nothing else can follow. Once the initial wave of emotion settles, once she's moved past that confusion, that frustration, the next thing that often happens is she begins to test the boundaries. And this part is fascinating because it reveals so much about both her mindset and yours. When you stop contacting her, you've created a shift. And people don't just accept a shift without probing it. She wants to know, is this real? Is he serious? Is he genuinely stepping back? Or is this just temporary? And the way she finds out is by testing. Now, these tests don't usually come in the form of direct confrontation. She's not going to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, why haven't you texted me?" That would make her too vulnerable. Instead, she'll often do it in subtle, indirect ways. Maybe she likes one of your posts after weeks of ignoring them. Maybe she sends you a casual message that doesn't really say much, something like, "Hey, saw this and thought of you," or even just a simple emoji reaction. On the surface, it looks insignificant. But underneath, it's her way of tugging the rope to see if you'll pull back. And here's the mistake many men make. They take the bait immediately. They see that tiny signal, that breadcrumb, and they jump at it. They reply instantly, pour energy into it, and essentially undo the very dynamic they worked so hard to create. But when you do that, you fail the test. Because the test isn't about the message. It's about whether you'll crumble the moment she offers you the smallest bit of attention. These little boundary checks aren't malicious. They're instinctive. They come from a place of wanting reassurance, wanting to know where she stands with you. But if every time she checks, you run right back, you teach her that she doesn't need to put in any real effort. She just needs to tug a little, and you'll do the rest. And that keeps you locked in the same pattern of overgiving and her underinvesting. Or what you need to do instead is recognize the test for what it is. When she sends that small signal, you don't ignore it completely, but you also don't overinvest. You acknowledge it without surrendering all your ground. That balance is what shows her that you're not desperate, you're not dependent, and you're not going to be reeled back in with crumbs. You're looking for more than that. You're looking for real effort. And here's where it gets interesting. When she realizes that those small gestures aren't enough, she'll begin to escalate. She might reach out more directly. She might bring up a memory you shared together. She might even challenge you with something like, "You've been quiet lately." All of these are her ways of testing to see if she still matters to you and whether your silence is a passing phase or a genuine shift in the dynamic. The key here is that these tests are actually a good sign. They mean she noticed. They mean she cares. Because think about it. If she didn't care, she wouldn't bother testing at all. She'd just move on quietly. The fact that she's probing, even indirectly, is evidence that your absence has created an effect. It's proof that the silence has weight. But again, this is where you have to stay grounded, because the way you respond to these tests determines whether the power of your silence is preserved or lost. If you respond with patience, with measured energy, with calm confidence, you pass. If you rush back in, flooding her with the same old attention, you fail. And passing the test doesn't mean being cold or dismissive. It means being selective. It means showing that you appreciate effort, but you're not going to chase validation from someone who isn't meeting you halfway. And let me tell you something, when you start to pass those tests, something shifts in her, because she realizes that she doesn't control the rhythm anymore. She can't just summon you with minimal effort. If she wants your presence, she has to actually show up. And that realization is powerful. It changes the dynamic from her being the prize to her recognizing that you are a prize too. Now, it's worth saying this, not all women will push harder after these tests. Some will pull away when they see you're not as easily available as before. And that's not something to fear. It's something to respect. Because what it reveals is that she was never prepared to put in the effort you deserve. And isn't it better to know that sooner rather than later? These boundary tests aren't just about her. They're about you discovering the truth of the connection. So when you stop contacting her, expect the tests. Expect the little gestures, the subtle pokes, the indirect ways she tries to re-engage. And when they come, don't get swept up in the excitement of attention. Stay grounded, stay measured, and remember what you're really looking for, a genuine connection, not crumbs of validation. Because those tests aren't designed to weaken you. They're designed to reveal you. After the emotional reaction and the boundary testing, something interesting begins to happen. The noise dies down. The flurry of feelings, the subtle signals, the tug of war energy, it all starts to quiet. And in that quiet, something much more meaningful begins. She starts reflecting. And I don't mean casually thinking about you in passing. I mean actual, genuine self-reflection. See, when you're always there, always reaching out, always giving attention, there's no need for her to question anything. She doesn't have to evaluate her behavior. Because there are no consequences. She can take the connection for granted, not out of malice, but simply because it's easy. But when you step back, when the messages stop coming, when the attention fades, she's left alone with her thoughts. And that's when the real work begins. She starts asking herself questions she wasn't asking before. Was I showing up the way I should have? Was I appreciating him enough? Did I make him feel wanted? Or was I just enjoying the attention? Those questions don't come from a place of blame. They come from a place of awareness. And awareness is what allows people to grow. Now, not every woman will do this. Some will get defensive. Some will try to flip the narrative and say, well, if he's not reaching out, that's on him. But the ones who are genuinely interested, the ones who felt something real, will take that space you've created and use it to reflect on their part in the connection. And that reflection can be incredibly powerful because it forces them to see the dynamic from a new angle. They begin to replay the moments between you. That time you opened up and they didn't respond the way they should have. That message you sent that went unanswered. That effort you made that went unnoticed. And now, with you no longer there, those moments stand out in sharp relief because absence has a way of sharpening perspective. When you were always present, those things blended into the background, but now they're front and center. And here's the beautiful thing about self-reflection. It creates empathy. It makes her realize that you weren't just someone chasing her. You were someone offering her something valuable, your time, your energy, your consistency. And once she begins to recognize that, she starts to question how she responded to it. Was she dismissive? Was she distracted? Was she so caught up in her own life that she forgot to appreciate yours? These aren't easy questions to ask, but they're necessary. Because without them, nothing changes. And that's why your silence isn't just a tactic. It's a catalyst. It's what allows her to stop seeing you as a background presence and start seeing you as a person with needs, with standards, with self-respect. And in that self-reflection, something else happens. She starts to compare, not just to other men she's known, but to the version of herself she wants to be. Maybe she realizes that she wants to be more intentional. Maybe she realizes she wants to be someone who values effort when it's given. Maybe she realizes that she doesn't just miss you. She misses the version of herself she was when she felt connected to you. That's when she starts thinking less about what you were giving her and more about what she was giving back. And that's the turning point. Because up until now, the dynamic may have been unbalanced. You gave more, she gave less. You chased, she coasted. But when reflection kicks in, the balance begins to shift. She sees that if she wants this connection to continue, she has to show up differently. She has to bring something to the table beyond just being desired. She has to invest. Now, not everyone will arrive at that realization. Some will resist it. Some will tell themselves stories to protect their ego. But the ones who truly care, the ones who are impacted by your presence, they'll feel it. And once they feel it, they can't unfeel it. That awareness lingers. It shapes the way they see you. It changes the way they see themselves. And the irony is, this reflection wouldn't happen if you kept reaching out. It wouldn't happen if you kept reassuring her, chasing her, filling in all the silence. Because without space, there's no mirror. Without silence, there's no room to hear your own thoughts. So your absence isn't punishment. It's perspective. It's the pause that allows her to finally look at the situation clearly. And what you'll often find is that after this period of reflection, the tone of her messages changes. The energy shifts. She's more thoughtful. She's more intentional. She might even acknowledge that she could have done more. And that's when you know the silence did its job. Because it didn't just make her miss you. It made her see you differently. When you stop contacting a woman, something else begins to shift that goes beyond emotion or reflection. The dynamic between you changes. It's subtle at first, but if you pay attention, you'll notice that the energy no longer flows in just one direction. And this change in dynamic is one of the most powerful outcomes of stepping back, because it resets the balance of how she sees you and how she values the connection. When you are always reaching out, always initiating, always making yourself available, whether you realized it or not, you were teaching her something about the dynamic. You were showing her that she didn't need to do much to have your attention. She didn't need to invest heavily because you were investing enough for both of you. And people, being human, respond to that by adjusting downward. They give less because they can, not necessarily because they don't care, but because they feel like the connection is safe, guaranteed, always there. But when that contact stops, that guarantee disappears. And suddenly, she has to reevaluate. She has to ask herself, where do I really stand with him? Do I still have his attention? Do I still have that access I thought I had? That uncertainty creates a new tension. And that tension is not only healthy, it's necessary. Because it's in that space of uncertainty that attraction grows. Think about it this way: value is determined by scarcity. The things we can always get, the things that never leave, that we start to overlook. The things that might not always be there, that could disappear if we don't hold on to them. Those are the things we value more deeply. Your silence reintroduces that scarcity. It reminds her that you're not just an endless supply of attention. You are a person with your own life, your own priorities, your own standards. And when she realizes that, the way she sees you changes. And with that change comes a shift in power. Not power in the sense of control or manipulation, but power in the sense of balance. You're no longer the one giving everything while she decides how much effort she feels like returning. Instead, she now has to step forward if she wants the connection to continue. She has to contribute. She has to engage. That shift makes her realize that this relationship, this connection, isn't just on your terms, it's on both of yours. This is why stepping back isn't about being cold or punishing. It's about creating space for reciprocity. Because if she values you, she will feel that shift and respond by investing more. She'll make an effort to reach out, to initiate, to show you that you matter. And that effort feels different, doesn't it? It feels different because it's not you pulling, it's her meeting you halfway. And that's when the connection stops being one-sided and starts becoming real. But here's the key. You have to let that dynamic shift happen. If you step back, but then rush forward at the first sign of her pulling away, you don't allow the balance to reset. You go right back to the old rhythm where she gives less and you give more. You have to be willing to sit in the discomfort of the silence long enough for her to feel it. That's where the growth happens. Not in the first few days, but in the moment she realizes she has to step up. And make no mistake, this change in dynamic doesn't just affect how she sees you. It affects how you see yourself. Because when you stop over-investing, you remind yourself that your value doesn't come from chasing or proving yourself. Your value comes from knowing you're worth someone's effort. You remind yourself that a healthy connection isn't built on one person carrying the load. It's built on two people showing up, and that mindset is magnetic. What's beautiful is that once the dynamic shifts, everything about the connection feels different. The conversations feel more balanced. The energy feels more mutual. She doesn't just wait for you to make her feel special. She starts looking for ways to make you feel special too. She doesn't just respond, she initiates. And when that happens, you start to see the relationship for what it can really be. A partnership, not a pursuit. But here's the other side of it. Sometimes, when the dynamic shifts, she won't step forward. She'll pull away instead. And while that might feel painful, it's actually clarity. It shows you that she wasn't prepared to invest. And that truth, while uncomfortable, is invaluable because it saves you from wasting your time in a connection where the balance was never going to change. So either way, the shift in dynamic serves you. If she values you, she adjusts and invests more. If she doesn't, she reveals herself. Both outcomes protect your energy and put you in a stronger position. And that's why this stage is so powerful. Because it's not just about her realizing something, it's about you realizing something too. And once that shift happens, the whole relationship starts to feel different. The roles aren't fixed anymore. The effort isn't lopsided. There's a new balance, a new respect, a new awareness of what each person brings to the table. Because when you step back, you don't just change how often she hears from you. You change how much she values having you in her life. At some point, after the curiosity, the emotions, the tests, the reflection, and the shift in dynamics, you arrive at a crossroads. And this is where things become really clear. Because when you stop contacting a woman, there are only two possible outcomes. She either decides to step up and chase to re-establish the connection, or she drifts away and lets the silence become permanent. And while those outcomes might feel very different emotionally, both of them are actually victories for you. Let's start with the first outcome. If she values what you brought to her life, if she's felt the difference your absence has made, she won't want to leave things as they are. She'll take action. She'll reach out more directly. She'll invest more intentionally, and she'll make it clear that she wants to bring you back into her world. And that effort changes everything. Because now, the dynamic isn't just you proving yourself, it's her proving herself too. You see a different side of her. You see her willing to put energy into keeping the connection alive. And that shows you she's serious. That's when the relationship becomes something you can actually build on. Because it's no longer one-sided. It's no longer dependent on you holding everything together. Instead, she's showing you that she's willing to match your energy, that she's willing to prioritize you, and that she sees your value. And when that happens, your silence has done its job. It hasn't pushed her away, it's pulled her closer, but in a way that's more balanced, more meaningful, and more sustainable. But let's talk about the second outcome, because this is where people often struggle. Sometimes, when you step back, she doesn't chase, she doesn't lean in, she lets the connection fade. And in that moment, it's tempting to see it as a loss. It's tempting to say, I pushed her away. Maybe I shouldn't have stopped contacting her. Maybe if I'd kept reaching out, things would have been different. But the truth is, her not responding to your absence is just as important as her chasing you. Because it shows you something you couldn't see when you were the one holding everything together. It shows you that she wasn't willing, or maybe even able, to invest in you at the level you deserve. It shows you that, without your constant energy, there wasn't enough there to sustain a real connection. And as painful as that may be in the short term, it saves you so much pain in the long term. Because imagine if you kept pouring into someone who was never prepared to meet you halfway. Imagine how exhausting, how draining, how frustrating that would be over time. By stepping back and allowing her to reveal herself, you've given yourself clarity. And clarity is one of the greatest gifts you can ever receive in dating and relationships. So either way, you win. If she chases, you get proof that she values you. If she doesn't, you get proof that she doesn't. And that knowledge gives you freedom. Freedom to invest in the right person, freedom to let go of the wrong one, freedom to trust yourself instead of clinging to uncertainty. And let me add something here. Sometimes when she doesn't chase, it's not even about you. It could be that she's emotionally unavailable, or she's not in a place to give. It could be that she's distracted or not looking for something real. Whatever the reason, it doesn't matter. Because the outcome is still the same. You find out the truth. And the truth always puts you in a stronger position than living in a fantasy where you keep hoping she'll give more while she never does. That's why this final stage is so powerful. It's the point where you stop guessing. It's the point where you stop trying to read between the lines. It's the point where you stop asking yourself, does she like me? Does she value me? Because her actions give you the answer. And once you have that answer, you don't have to overthink anymore. You don't have to chase. You don't have to wonder. You don't have to waste energy on uncertainty. You can move forward with clarity and confidence, knowing exactly where you stand. So, when you stop contacting a woman, yes, she may get curious, she may get emotional, she may test, she may reflect, she may even start investing more. But eventually, it all leads to this moment, the moment of truth. And while it might feel scary to face, it's actually the most liberating moment of all, because it gives you certainty. And certainty in relationships is priceless.